welcome to TAD TV. My name is Rhonda Roberts and I'm here with the lovely Cindy Willems, who's going to talk to us today about nutrition. Especially after Thanksgiving, I know most of you probably ate tons and tons of things that you're not really proud of, but it's okay. It's time now to get back on track, and I'm so thrilled to have her with us. Cindy and I have known each other for long time, and we danced together in shows, and the one thing that I remember when we were dancing in Stratford together was that you would always have such great snacks and meals to bring to rehearsal where we would not. And then I would go to Cindy's house and eat. She would make me like amazing soups, and then I would go back to my little hovel and have like yucky stuff. So it's autumn, and before we get into talking about all the root vegetables, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Okay. So when as I was looking to retire from dance, I started to explore doing Pilates for my own body, and then I decided to teach it. So that's how I primarily got into working kind of in the health and wellness industry. And then along the way, I discovered that there was more that I needed to do, more tools that I needed to offer my clients. I have always been exposed to growing up eating a whole foods diet, and I feel like that really set the foundation for me to have make good choices. So that was kind of one of the things that kind of drove me to exploring more nutritional aspects of the health and wellness, and so I became a holistic nutritionist.
And can you explain whole food diet?
Yes.
Because there's a whole lot of diets.
All right.
Let's talk about whole foods.
This is a whole food, so it's pretty simple. Like
yes.
If it comes from the earth and you eat it without, processing it in any way, that's a whole food. So, I did a workshop with someone years ago, and they said if you can grow it, if you can catch it, then it's a whole food generally. So it's really just taking the best of what the earth offers us, and not processing it and eating it in its best whole food state as possible. But that doesn't mean you have to eat raw. Like whole foods doesn't mean that it's raw foods.
Exactly.
Right? So it's a balance.
Yes, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to what is a whole food diet. Does that mean I need to go eat organic, everything?
Yeah. That's the other part of it too, right? So it's all about finding balance, because not everyone can afford to eat organic food completely. So for me, I choose if I'm going to eat organic, I choose very specific ones. One being EWG, which is Environmental Workers Group, has a fabulous website out there that they talk about the Dirty Dozen.
Right.
They're basically the top 12 crops out there that are potentially exposed to GMO, potentially have the highest amount of residue and pesticides out there. So if you go to that and you find that list of the Dirty Dozen.
Can you hit us with the Dirty Dozen?
Yeah.
Do you know the Dirty Dozen off the top of your head?
No, not off the top of my head, but I'll tell you some of the big ones that I love. So some of the big ones that I try not to buy: peaches.
Peaches you should buy organic. Strawberries,
raspberries, organic. Because those are the ones that are highly sprayed. But then there's other ones like, they're trying to introduce GMO crops in like corn, wheat, beets as well. They're trying to bring in GMO. Some potatoes now are coming in GMO.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of kind of, again, finding that balance. So there are things that I buy organic, which is usually those fruits and vegetables that are going to be highly sprayed, like the berries are going to be highly sprayed.
The berries,
berries are one. But kind of on the other side of that, even just looking at teas, like teas are highly sprayed. The tea plants, tea crops are highly sprayed too. So again, finding that balance. So that's kind of the one aspect of it. But the other one is if you're a meat eater or a dairy eater or byproduct, that's another thing that I try to buy as organic as possible. So I have like organic milk, organic butter, because that's for me, for us in our house, that's our staple, milk and butter.
Right.
So I buy those two, and eggs. Those three things are my organic base as best I can. Or if I'm not buying organic, then often we'll go down to the St. Lawrence Market, and there's a great Mennonite farm that comes there, and we'll often buy our chickens from them because we know that they've been well taken care of, and they're not putting stuff into their feed, etc. Right? Yes. So we'll buy that, and then buying if you're going to have meat, I make the choice to spend more money on a good piece of meat, which means I'm getting a smaller cut of meat, which means I'm eating less meat. Yes, which is all good. Like that's a really great circle, right? So I buy less amount of meat, but I spend the money on quality, and then make sure I get it from a reputable source, and there's a lot of great butchers out there in the city that are bringing in really great, reputable, locally grown meat.
One who you know personally.
One I know personally, yes.
Which is right here in the Bloor West, isn't it? No, sorry, the Danforth.
Well, they're now in the Roncesvalles too.
Oh, they're in Roncesvalles as well.
Yep, so we have
Danforth, we'll give them a little plug. What's the name?
That's the meat department.
The meat department, and there's one on Danforth, which is...
Yes.
Where? What's
Danforth, between Broadview and Chester.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in Roncesvalles, I can't remember the main streets.
But it's called the
meat department.
The meat department, because I do have some Roncy clients. So the meat department, you got to go and check them out. Yeah. Okay, so then, as you were saying, you discovered that you wanted to add more to your palette as far as your training, and I think that's really important to understand. Some people expect all trainers to know all about nutrition, and how many years did you spend studying this? It takes some time. And you keep learning, and you keep studying, and for me, as soon as I started to go into more of the Eastern philosophies of nutrition, well, that's a whole other different realm of how you look at food. Yeah. Because I often tell my clients, I said, I'm not a nutritionist. And then I point them to your direction and say, I know somebody who is, because I think, we've studied our bodies for years and years and years. And so I understand that. Yeah. But nutrition it's a science, and not everybody's body reacts the same way. And that's one of whenever I start working with someone and someone will ask me about a diet, I will say, well, I do provide specialized diets that are very specific for certain ailments or issues that are going on in the body, such as hormone deficiencies and imbalances. We'll talk about hormone things in a second. Bone health, energy health, immune health. So those are all diets I've created that kind of address those kind of issues. But within that, I then create menu plans that are specific for the person in front of me. Because again, the person in front of me do they have kids? Are they really busy? Are they going to be able to cook? Are they not a cook? What's their palate? What's their taste palate? What do they love to eat? What they don't love to eat? It's making that. And then if I'm throwing in TCM, well, now I'm looking at, is that person hot? Are they cold? Are they deficient? TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. Yes. So it's kind of all those elements to create something that's accessible for the person, but it's also going to nourish the person as well. Right. So and we could start going in about gluten-free, dairy-free, and there's a lot of I think marketing surrounding some of these things right now, and so everybody's like thinking I have to be gluten-free, but do you believe that everybody should be gluten-free? No. I think the best thing is that you need to listen to your body. You need to make as best choices as you can. And if you are having sensitivity with foods, go and seek out a nutritionist or naturopath or someone to help you guide you through this, because sometimes the sensitivity to something, it may be something to do with the protein that's in it. It may even be again, if you're eating stuff that has pesticides and residues on them, like the fruits and vegetables. I have a lot of clients that eat a lot of fruit,
and they eat a lot of berries, and they don't necessarily buy the organic, right? And they don't necessarily buy the local.
Right.
They're getting berries and stuff from other countries whose
You don't know
what they're spraying on there, and so it may be that you're sensitive to how that food is processed or handled.
Right.
So working with someone is going to be important.
It may not necessarily, and this is I think a really important point, it may not necessarily be what you're eating, but it could be what is on it.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, flour products, which is the big one, the big gluten one, right? Our flour now is not what our flour used to be 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, right? It's bleached, it's over processed. There's a lot of GMO being introduced into that as well. So it's really gone through a real tough refinement that it didn't used to go through before, right? I mean, everybody wants flour now. Everybody wants to bake things and make pasta and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's really been butchered. So as soon as you start to like butcher something, you change the molecules. You change how the essence of that nutrient is then used by our body. Right. And then when our body starts to, have to eat, starts trying to figure out how to digest this molecule, this protein molecule that's in a different way than maybe it usually is, that potentially can cause that irritation or that inability to digest it properly. And that's when you get the bloating, the cramping, the upset tummy that happens. So I feel like a lot of it is around that kind of, it's not necessarily that we have a gluten intolerance, but it's eating all those, floured baked goods that are out there that.
And let's just say, because you have a scone and it's gluten free, it doesn't
mean
necessarily make
it's healthy for
healthy.
you. Yeah, well, that's the other part of it, right? Like dairy-free, gluten-free, fat-free. They're taking something out, but they've got to put something back in. And if you can go to like your local baker, there are some really great bakers out there doing some really amazing things. You're still gonna have the sugar in there, and you're still, it's one of those toss-ups. You have to look at what. Yeah.
I say if you're buying a baked good, you're buying a baked good.
And it's not a whole food, right? So like
you just gotta enjoy it.
Like make it good. That's what my husband always says. If you're just gonna eat a square, it's gonna be a really good square.
Yeah.
It's like, why waste it on anything else, right?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, we have some yummy vegetables in front of us, and I want to just talk about a few things that we really can sort of introduce into our diet. And so Cindy brought this lovely basket of Whole Foods.
And this is, I went to my local co-op in Toronto called Karma Co-op. And what I love about, and the reason why I joined them 7 years ago now, being in the city, is because they bring in locally sustainable grown food. So the majority of what I get is what is grown in season.